get underway. So welcome to our Healing for Wellbeing webinar series from the New Beginning Center. We're so glad you joined us. I'm Sean Baker, co-owner and executive director, and your host. So before we get started, here's a few tips about how we can communicate with each other during this webinar. I've asked my daughter, Chris, who's behind the scenes. She'll be managing also the controls so we can hopefully attend to the best experience of the webinar. First of all, you can move my talking head anywhere on your screen for your optimal viewing pleasure. Please use the raise your hand feature to let us know if you're having an issue that needs immediate attention, like you can't see or hear me. And then please use the Q&A for your questions. Feel free to submit questions as they occur to you. We'll be gathering and organizing them, and either Chris will chime in and pause so I can take the question at that moment, or we'll wait till the end if it seems more appropriate. And then feel free to use the chat feature to let us know your feedback about the webinar or to share resources that might be helpful for all of us. And finally, we'll be recording each webinar, and so we'll send a link of them to you after when they're ready. So if you missed something, no worries, you can go back and have another look at it. So we're so pleased with the positive response we've received from these webinars. During this pandemic and global upheaval, we see this as an opportunity to explain what's been happening to all of us, our minds, our bodies, our relationships, and to share tools that we can use for our own mental health, for our loved ones, and really for the well-being of our entire community. Oh, I ran into the same problem that Susan did. Oh, there we go. So through my own healing journey and those I've witnessed, I'm really grateful to be part of creating a somatic healing center for trauma in Camarillo, California. At the center, we have an intensive outpatient program for trauma and anxiety and an array of outpatient services that are designed to help heal your nervous system, restore connection, and resilience. We have an incredible team of practitioners, many of whom you'll see here. They each bring their passion, their creativity, their humility, and their unique talents as healers to their work with you. We created this series of webinars and ongoing support groups to assist you with tools for well-being during this time of crisis and really beyond. I'm also your presenter today. I've been a certified trauma healing specialist for over 20 years. I really feel so blessed by the wonderful teachers and mentors I've had over the years that have generously passed on what they know, and I hope to offer the same to you. So here we go. A little sheltering in place pandemic humor. And why is this the case, right? I might get up early and have had a pretty good night's sleep, and I think, okay, I'm gonna get out there and get out of the house and go exercise. And then before I know it, I've only managed to put on my exercise clothes and I'm on the couch eating 2 cupcakes. So I thought this cartoon really spoke well about what is happening in our bodies, that there is some sort of disconnection, that what I intend to do and how I intend to do my day, and how do I end up on the couch sort of zoned out eating cupcakes. So for those of you who were with Susan's webinar last week, you'll recall that we looked at this experience of the nervous system as we've kind of charted it out, right? And I look at it as the green zone is my optimal range of resilience. It's the me that got up and said, let's go exercise today. And when I'm in that zone, I'm exerting, there is arousal, I have challenges, but I also have enough capacity, I have enough support, I did get enough sleep, I did get enough nutrition that I'm able to meet the challenges of my day. And so you'll see, if I can use my mouse, you'll see sort of this gentle curve of arousal and discharge and arousal and discharge. And that's the way things are meant to happen in an optimal nervous system in an optimal environment. But the trouble is that we're in a situation where there is a threat, that we're perceiving. We can't see it. It's invisible. We're not sure what the threat is. Might be economic threat for some of us more than medical threat. It might be social threat. So there's tension, and that draws the body into wanting to move into acting, into fighting or fleeing, but we're being told to shelter in place. And we're also being told to kind of shelter and stay away from each other. So all of these kind of barriers or constrictions really have an impact on our nervous system, and we're being asked to come up with new and creative ways to manage ourselves more optimally, which is why I hope you're here to learn about how to do that. So right, we're in this state of disembodiment or disconnection, and I'm going to use trauma as a descriptor because I do think that what we're going through is traumatic. Just in terms of how it's affecting everybody's nervous system. And again, some more than others. Some people have greater capacity, greater resilience, but I haven't met anybody who hasn't been impacted in some way and feeling kind of out of sorts. So the nature of trauma creates this disconnection from our own embodied or somatic experience. We are one, body and mind operating together. And so healing and recovery is going to require a re-embodiment. And so what we're going to do is we're going to offer some tools to gently assist you to reintegrate your awareness of yourselves within your own body. So a little bit about the brain. Susan did a lot last week about it. I just kind of want to come back to it because there's this part that our body is receptors, the antennae. We receive information through our five senses, through our touch. Our skin is its own organ that just picks up temperature changes, pressure changes. You can feel the delicate butterfly landing on your shoulder. All of that information kind of comes up through the brainstem and perceives safety or lack of safety. It then is experienced through the limbic system, which is our emotional center. We assign feelings to it. So I want to pause there. We assign feelings to physical experiences. That's a really important thing. We're having physical experiences, absolutely. There's no changing to that. But how I'm wired and is different than how you're wired. And so what emotions I'm going to assign based upon what's happening in my limbic system is going to be different than what's happening for you. And then a layer on top of that, the most advanced part of our brain, the neocortex, is the storyteller and the executive function, right? So that part of the brain is now making up a story, literally making up a story to explain the information that's coming from the lower parts of the brain. So my antenna, my sensors are feeling discomfort in the environment, just kind of like electricity. My emotions, or my stomach's churning, I'm distressed. My emotions are feeling kind of irritable or upset. And the story I might make up is, I'm annoyed with the way my wife left something out in the house, right? And I pick a fight with her. So that has nothing to do with the source of the information. The source of the information was this distress, dis-ease. Maybe it's something I didn't agree with me from dinner last night. And so if I can manage my nervous system at the level of what my body's experiencing, I'm going to spare my relationships for one, right? And I'm going to have a better understanding of how my emotions are involved in getting me in trouble or out of trouble in terms of using them with my words and how I interact with my relationships, which Dale will talk more about next week. So this is not new ideas, right, of the thinking body or the body and the mind being one. Mabel Todd, back in 1937, wrote about for every thought supported by a feeling, which how can they not be, there's a response in our muscles. So we're now looking at it from the thought process down. So I'm going to invite you to just think about, maybe close your eyes if it's helpful, but think about someone you love. Think about that sense of comfort. Can you feel any changes in your muscles? Can you feel a gentle loosening? Maybe your jaw loosens a bit. Maybe you're relax in terms of your shoulders. So that happens, that's that connection between our thoughts, our emotions, and our embodied experience. Often, actually the body speaks, which the voice can't seem to be able to speak. That would be from the bottom up, right? Sort of the example I gave before. I'm feeling some sort of distress, not quite sure. It's driving, it wants to be communicated, but I haven't really figured out where it's coming from. But the body is going to be the source of the perceiving of what's happening. And so the good news is if we can change what's happening in the body, we can also change what's happening in the mind, right? If I change my embodied experience, if I give my body more comfort and ease and pleasure, I'm going to have a better mental attitude. It's sort of why the doctor will say, go exercise for depression. Yes, because there is some natural things that happen when we move our bodies, when we give our bodies pleasure, that changes our mental health as well. So a little bit more about the nervous system and how all of this is connected. So we have this is a simplistic version of it. Ideally, we have a parasympathetic nervous system that is kind of what we call the rest and digest branch of the nervous system. And we really want to protect and cultivate this relaxation responses that are associated with the parasympathetic system. Why? Because it is in this state of parasympathetic arousal or relaxation that our nervous system and our brain starts to send signals to fully digest our food in the most optimal way possible, to spend time doing cell repair, which is really our immune system. So the more that we are going about our day in a relaxed state, the more capacity or availability. I think of this is an electrical system. So if you think about a grid, right, in the summertime, the more that we've got available to work on cell repair and immune system, the healthier I'm going to be. Now, we have this other branch, the sympathetic branch. This is the part of the nervous system that's ready to take action. So when we perceive a threat, we perceive a need to go out and do something, even if it's taking exercise, right? Something that I might find pleasurable, there is some effort involved, right? And so the body moves into a state of action. It stops digestion because it wants to divert blood flow to the periphery, to my arms, to my legs, so that I can run, to my heart, so I can increase my heartbeat, to my lungs, so I can increase my capacity for breathing. All of that's wonderful. Now, it's a system that's not meant to be on chronically. It's meant to go and act and then rest, come back to the parasympathetic. So we're running into difficulty because our neocortex, our thinking brain, can kind of override the natural system. So when we feel tired, sadly, many of us might reach for a cup of coffee or something else that sort of overrides the tiredness rather than honoring it and resting, giving that nervous system, going back to that green zone, right? The natural ebb and flow of I have arousal, I exert myself, and then I rest and I take a break. So part of this is about learning how to notice our limits and honoring them, because while it may in the short term seem like we have to do less, because if I'm tired and I give myself a rest rather than pushing through, well, then I didn't get as much done today, so to speak, right? However, less is more. When I honor my limits and I take a rest, I'm now setting myself up to increase my capacity. So then when I wake up from my rest, I am more rested, hopefully. I'm more resilient. I have more capacity. And so the thing that I needed to do, I've got a fresh brain, I've got a relaxed brain, I've got a relaxed body that I can give my best attention to, as opposed to pushing through and operating from a state of tiredness. So one of the things that we really need to come back to is noticing how do we release this normal arousal system, right? We talked about, oh, well, there's this sense of threat out there. We don't know how long it's lasting. It's not like a natural disaster where the bad thing happens in a short period of time and then we all kind of get out and help each other repair and rebuild the town and so forth. Unfortunately, we're in more of this chronic state of a protracted crisis, which kind of inhibits the nervous system from being able to do its natural release and then resetting itself. So anytime that you notice yourself feeling on the verge of tears or experiencing waves of heat or wanting to shake or tremble, I invite you to please let yourself do it. If you look at the great photo here of the dog shaking himself or herself, notice the energy that this creates, right? So that release is wonderful for the nervous system. So really let yourself shake when you feel that happening or tremble. I invite you to yawn. Let's just do it right now. Give yourself a big yawn or two. You might even roll your shoulders back. I invite you to yawn in your Zoom meetings. It releases the jaw. It again kind of resets the nervous system. Invite people at your meeting, to yawn. It just really can do wonders for kind of giving that feedback of, hey, this is a safe situation. I can take a rest. Stomach gurgles are another great sign that, again, the body is using digestion. And so it's a sign that you're in more of a parasympathetic state. Goosebumps are another form of release. So we're wired as social creatures. And as I said before, we're used to figuring out how to get through a crisis by it happens and then we work towards helping each other out. This is our social engagement system. It's the most advanced part of our defense response of our nervous system. And so as we can see here, we see someone in distress, it impacts us. We move in, we look at the person who's distressed, we make eye contact, we might soften our voice, we use our own facial expressions or touch to move in and provide comfort and support. We tune into really all of the things that are happening in the environment, and we also use and tune into our senses. And I can't stress enough that breathing is one of the best ways that we can kind of support our social engagement system and our nervous system health. If we go back to the branches of the nervous system, the vagus nerve is one of the cranial nerves that innervates most of the major organs. And by breathing, we have the best access to affecting that vagus nerve through our lungs. And so that's a wonderful way that you can help yourself reset that nervous system. So this is what we're meant to do, right? When there's distress, you get bumped by somebody, your first line of thought is to check out, did they mean that, or was that intentional or not? And so that's how we're meant to operate. However, under self-isolation, that's not available, right? I want my friends, I want other people around me, I want my old life back. Well, that system's not available right now. So what's the alternative? Bagels, I guess. Nothing like a good carb to numb the system a bit. And so here's how it looks from a more technical perspective. Back to the green zone, right? If I can use my curiosity, my compassion, my sense of connection with others, that's going to be the way that I can manage a situation most optimally, because it uses all of the wonderful, most advanced parts of my nervous system and of my brain. When it's not available, the body kind of naturally then moves into fight or flight as my other alternatives. It moves into that sympathetic. I can sense that some action needs to happen, but my first line of action isn't available or isn't effective. So then my body moves into a fight or flight response. So that's that underlying, irritability or dis-ease or outright rage maybe sometimes in response to this unseen danger or threat or worry, what's going to happen 3 months from now or 6 months from now. Now, if I'm, again, sheltering in place and there's really no one to fight, there isn't an obvious threat coming at me, then that's not an effective use. So then my last resort, the most primitive part of my nervous system, the one that we inherited from our ancestors, is the freeze response. It's the hibernation response. It is a parasympathetic response. So if we think about the rest and digest part, it does have some of those qualities. There is an increase of storage if we think about it as hibernation, but it's an isolative kind of relaxation response. It's more of, again, like a hibernation. Yes, my heart rate slows down, my blood pressure does slow down. Those things certainly are good for conserving energy, good for my immune system, but it lacks the it really is preparing for death, as you can see in the chart, right? It has more of a sense of shutdown than a sense of aliveness. And so it's not meant to be again, a chronic way of being in the world. My social engagement system is the way that I'm going to be most optimally functioning. So how do we get...
Sorry, Sean.
Yeah.
There are a couple of questions that kind of popped up based on that last slide. I wanted if you wanted to take a look at them. They seem like good, timely.
Great. Okay. How is everyone doing able to see facial expressions when people have masks on? Seeing patients is difficult. Yes. It's one of the things that we're working on as we think about, what is the way that we want to transition our work, because I'm not sure that going back into the office, first of all, with the increase in tension, the allostatic load on my nervous system, right? Every time that I go to the office once a week to pick up the mail, just that, even though I'm not going to see anybody, I got to grab the door handle, I got a mask, I got gloves, I'm already in this more heightened aroused state. And so I'm compromised. Absolutely. Trying to do therapy or engage with each other's when you have a mask on makes it more difficult. We're then tuning into the ocular block, which is huge. I mean, we take in 90% of our information through visual. So I think that thankfully we still get to, reveal our eyes, that we don't have to keep them covered. There's a lot that you can tell from that, but for sure it does limit. I'm suffering a lot to adjust to my limit. I've realized that my capacity is a lot less than before. I get exhausted each day and so easily. Although I keep my 1-hour Zumba routine, good job, take my vitamins, I'm trying to find the root causes. Doesn't mean I'm struggling with multitasking during this, being alone and locked down, fear of uncertainties leading to severe anxiety. Yeah, I think all of those. And one of the things I talk about in my work with folks is to try to not scare yourself. There is going to be this kind of natural arousal. Let's see if I can go back here for a second. All the way back here. There is going to be this natural arousal, right? And so when I'm feeling a sense of danger or panic, if I can just, and that's why we're going to do some of these exploratory movements, if I can just tune into the sensations and not let my emotions or my storytelling part of my brain take over and create panic, right? Oh my goodness, I'm worried about this and that's why I'm feeling uncomfortable. Then I'm going to be much more in control of being able to calm myself down. Chris, is there another one that I need to take a look at now?
This seems to be kind of a follow-up from the last one, just about kind of adjusting normal practice.
Okay. How do we adjust our new normal practice
now or address it at the end, whichever.
Without feeling depressed, missing the old normal? How can we remain positive during this tough time? I think we have to grieve. I think that depression one of my clients shared with me, she's like, depression, we've depressed something. Yes, depression is this numbed out state where we're not feeling what we normally would be feeling. And so if I let myself feel the loss of my old life, I mean, I can just feel it, tears welling up behind my eyes right now. That's the alternative, is I have to let my body shake and tremble and cry and feel all of that is the reality, that things have changed overnight and there's a loss there. And if we can connect with others through that and share with others through that, we will get through it much faster than trying to kind of push it to the side. I can't always remain positive. Sometimes I have to let myself, my best mental health is to let myself feel the upset. All right. So I know I've been sitting far more than I used to at long periods of time. So we're going to do this first exercise, and I'm going to invite you to stand up. Make sure that you guys can see me. So part of this is about what we call interoception. This listening with our whole self, noticing how do we tune in to ourselves. And so as I invite you to stand, just notice how you're standing. Where's the weight on your feet? Is it more on the balls of your feet? Is it more on your heels? Is it different from left to right? And what about your breath? Are you breathing more because you exerted yourself getting up? Are you breathing shallowly? Just notice that. And then I invite you to stand, with your feet hip distance apart, a little bit less than your shoulders. And just to give you another example of how connected the body and mind are, I invite you to think about something that happened earlier today. Maybe something you took care of, or you were getting ready to come to the webinar, or something from earlier. And just notice, has the weight shifted anywhere on your feet? For me, I can feel this pull of my weight moving much more onto my heels as I think about something from the past. And then just let that go. And now I invite you to think about something that's happening maybe later today, maybe tonight. Could be something that you're not looking forward to, something you're planning for yourself. And again, notice, where does your energy take your body? For me, again, it moves my weight more towards the balls of my feet. So there's just this natural energetic connection between my body responding to my mind responding to my body. So we're going to kind of go with this rocking, this back and forth, intentionally now. And each time, as you notice, letting the weight shift from the balls of your feet to your heels and back and forth, just do it a little bit less. Make that movement a little bit smaller each time. Until at some point, the person who might be nearby couldn't really discern that you're moving, but that you're really no longer forward nor back, but sort of over your arches. And just notice if there's any changes that are happening as you find this spot that's kind of in the middle. Anything releases. And now notice your weight from left and right. We'll do a little bit of rocking and weight shifting. Notice how your body takes your weight on one side and then shift it over to the other side. Is there one side that you tend to stand on that leg more often, right? It's more familiar. Your body is used to taking the weight of you. The other side might be less. But again, do this gentle rocking of letting your weight move from side to side. Each time a little bit less. Until again it becomes indiscernible. And now, again, notice this point. Perhaps you're balanced over what we call our arch points, neither forward nor back, neither left nor right. If you can close your eyes, if you've had your eyes closed, you can tune in. Notice if anything softened or relaxed. What are the differences from when you first stood up? So this is this tuning in. This is exploratory movement, giving myself the wisdom of my inner knowing, discovering comfortable ways to reconnect to my embodied self. And as Moshe Feldenkrais used in his practice, this making the impossible possible, that which I didn't think I could do in my body, the possible easy and the easy elegant. Another type of exploratory movement is trauma-sensitive yoga. And my friend and colleague Carolyn Costin talks about it in this way. And we're trying to help people have a present moment experience with their body. And so what's happening in TSY, trauma-sensitive yoga, is about, again, this interoception experience. For me, that's the kind of yoga I go to, is one that is tuning into me. How's my body doing? The relationship with me and my body, not can I do this pose? And so it's tuning in and rewiring my brain to have a present moment experience. And then I'm interacting with it. I'm breathing it, or I'm moving somewhat differently. I'm exploring, is my body able to move a little bit further in that direction? That as I tolerate that, again, it also changes my ability to manage my emotions. So physical flexibility, yes, does promote emotional flexibility and mental flexibility. Now, again, I'm not just talking about folks who can hyperextend themselves. I'm talking about this capacity, flexibility in terms of capacity. And that, again, is having to do with how I'm interacting with my brain and wiring my brain. So as I have more awareness of my embodied experience, and I tune into it in a way with an intention of creating more physical ease, I'm going to have more emotional comfort. Think about it from the flip side. Any of you with physical discomfort, if your stomach's hurting or you have some chronic pain issues, the brain, there's some real estate in the brain that is being preoccupied with pain signals and managing that information. So it's less available to use for more creative endeavors, right? The days when I don't feel well physically, I'm more cranky, I'm more irritable, I'm short-tempered, I don't use my words well. I kind of, use monosyllables. And so the opposite is true. When I can create more physical ease, I create more physical and emotional comfort. And so then that anxiety reduces as the body releases the tension or these defensive postures, these chronic ways that I hold tension in my body. This creation of more ease and less tension then brings down the allostatic load on the nervous system. It brings down the resting state to a more restful state, right? So my capacity increases. I have a more peaceful experience. I have better decision making, right? Because my brain is relaxed, my body's relaxed, I'm thinking clearly. And of course, all of that translates itself on up, right? My body's more relaxed, my emotional state's more relaxed, my thinking state's more relaxed, my words are going to come out clearer and more and softer, and that's going to create more positive relationships. And again, Dale is going to talk a lot more about how all of this impacts our relationships in more specific ways and tools next time. So we're going to do another exploration. And again, there's lots of different kinds of exploratory movement. The ones that I'm offering you today are based in cortical field reeducation, which is a modality we offer at the center. But you can use these principles in any kind of movement. You can get down and roll on the floor and use these principles to help yourself. Because the idea is we're going to go gently and slowly using comfort as our guide. What a lovely gift to give myself physical comfort with intention. That's, I think, the definition of love. when I move easily while I'm breathing. I want to reduce effort, right? Because that's going to help my nervous system be available for that parasympathetic response. I'm only going to move until I encounter what I call the first barrier, a place where if I kept moving in that direction, I would need more effort because it's a little tight, or it's a little unstable, or it's a little wobbly. That first barrier, again, if we think about it emotionally, we know how to push past it. Or if we're tired, we push past it. We're irritable, we push past it. But what if we didn't? What if we honored our first barrier and gave the brain a different way to be creative, to figure out a workaround? Believe me, our brains are wildly creative to come up with new ways instead of kind of ramming our head, through the same old way. We're always interested in the quality of the movement, not how far you can do the movement or how big you make the movement. Because again, pushing past that first barrier just tells the brain, oh yeah, I know how to do that. That's my old habit of, I ignore the pain signal, I ignore the tired signal, I move into overdrive zone. That's going to rob our nervous system. You can imagine the movement. For those of you who have injuries, acute or chronic, and are limited in your ability to move, or again, being kind of confined at home, but the thing you love to do is out there and it's not, you can't go, downhill skiing. Imagine it. Spend time imagining yourself skiing. It creates a wonderful experience for your brain. And always when you're doing something like we're doing, we're going to rest between movements and kind of notice those differences. And I'm going to check in with Chris again. Do we have any questions that need attention right now? Or can I go ahead with my next exploration?
Yeah, no questions.
Okay, great. So this time, I'm going to invite you to sit on a chair, but I think you can do it just as fine standing or even laying down. This is about being creative. So find a place that's most comfortable for your body. That's the first and foremost. So I'll give you a moment to do that. If you are sitting in a chair, I would invite you to sit with kind of your knees at right angles, so your ankles are directly under your knees and you can feel your sit bones. If you're laying, you might lay just straight, or you might lay with your feet in standing with your knees bent. And if you're standing like I am at the moment, again, a comfortable stance that you feel good in, and you can always change your position at any time. In fact, I am going to move to sitting down. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. And again, that might change how you want to position yourself. With your eyes closed, just let your head be sort of looking out onto the horizon if you're sitting. If you're laying, you'd be sort of just looking straight up to the ceiling. And let your hands be at your side, resting, let your shoulders relax, and everything to begin to soften, to notice who's here now. And with your eyes closed, please begin to make a movement of gently and slowly turning your head to the left. How far does it go easily without effort? Before that first barrier, stop at that first barrier, and then come back to center or neutral. Each time you make a movement, and you're going to come back to neutral, and then you're going to take a breath and relax. And now make the movement of turning your head to the right. And notice, how is that different? Is it easier? Is it harder than turning your head to the left? Only go as far as is easy, and then come back to neutral with your head back to center. Now I'm going to invite you to pick the easier side, the side that was easier to turn your head toward. And that's up to you to decide. It might be based upon how far you turned it. It might be, again, just the quality of what felt good to you. We're going to work with the easy side because we believe that that's a side that has already more flexibility, more open to learning. And that's what we're doing, is we're giving the brain some new learning through the body. So pick that easier side and begin to make a movement of turning your head to the easier side, while with your eyes closed, your eyes are moving opposite. And so if your head is turning to the left, your eyes are going to be going to the right. And just notice what that's like. And then come back to neutral. Only go as far as is easy and gentle and comfortable. And only go as far as one side can go easily, and start at the same time. So you initiate the movement, your head begins to move to the left or to the right, whichever is the easier side for you, and your eyes are going the other way, only as far as is easy. Tune into what it feels like. Do your eyes go easily, or is there kind of a stuttering of them as they go across with your eyes closed? Make the movement several times. You turn your head to the easy side, and your eyes go opposite. And each time you come back to neutral. And notice, does it get easier as you become more familiar? You're already creating more, in a sense, motor memory. Does the motion of your eyes behind your closed eyes moving opposite start to smooth itself out each time? And now continue the movement. This time, just take a rest, come back to center. We're going to let your jaw move with your eyes. So your head goes in one direction, and at the moment that you start to move your head in that direction, your eyes closed and your jaw together are going to go opposite, only as far as is easy, and they only go the same amount of distance. And then when one of them hits the first barrier, bring them both back to center. Are you breathing? How does this change the movement, change the quality of your experience of having your eyes go with your jaw? Do this move a few times. Again, you can always imagine it to the easy side. And now reverse the movement and turn your head to the other side, the side you didn't choose. And let your eyes and jaw go opposite. So if your head is going to the left, then your eyes and jaw are going to the right. This is now on the non-familiar, not the easy side. What's that like? Is it different? And now just let it all go and rest. Keep your eyes closed. Just notice what you're feeling inside your body. Can you tune into the volume in your neck, the weight of your eyes? Can you feel your jaw? And if you're sitting, how are you sitting on your sit bones now? And so now once again, make a movement of turning your head to the easy side. And this time let your jaw go with your head and just your eyes go opposite. Is that more familiar or less familiar? Do this move, 2 or 3 times. And then when you're ready, this is what we did initially, right? Head and jaw one way, eyes the other, at the same time, back together. And then reverse it. Take your head to the new side, and your jaw goes with your head, and your eyes go opposite. And then come back to neutral. Try that once or twice. And then let that go. And sense, where are your shoulders in space? Keeping your eyes closed, make a movement of pressing your shoulders backwards. It's as though you were taking your shoulder blades towards your spine. They come back towards the spine, and then you let them go. Your shoulder blades come together, both together, and then both shoulder blades reaching towards that middle line of your body, and then they release to neutral. Can you notice what's happening in your neck when you do this? Again, pay attention to your breath. Are you able to breathe? Allow yourself to make the movement freely and easily without encumbering or getting involved in any other muscle groups or doing something that's not needed. Are your feet clenching or your hands clenching. Notice that, and if you can, let it go. And now reverse the movement and take your shoulders forward. Not up, but just forward, away from the spine. Can you feel your shoulder blades as they slide away from each other over your ribs at your side? Just sense that movement, and then back to neutral. Really feel what it's like when your shoulder blades come forward. Do you tense your jaw? Do you sort of scrunch or harden your eyes? Could you let your eyes and your jaw and your neck be soft? Breathe. And then just let go of the shoulder movement and sense your shoulders now. Do they hang in a different place? And just take a moment to be with who's here now. And then when you feel ready, open your eyes. And you've hopefully had a chance to notice, we call this a differentiation exercise because we're kind of separating out groups that tend to tense together. And sometimes for folks it creates some frustration. You could feel some dis-ease, or this is hard, or I don't like this, or when is this going to be over? How long is Sean going to keep talking? That's it. That's the affect tolerance that we're getting you to practice. When you know, I hope, that this is a safe environment, all I've asked you to do is do a couple of gentle and slow movements. Why am I having such a strong emotional response to this? Okay, there's something happening. And if I can allow that to happen, if I can just attend to my nervous system and go, oh, I'm in some kind of distress. It's not physically hard to do this movement, but I'm feeling irritable. Imagine it. Let it go. This is listening and tuning into those internal signals of yes and no. Taking in my sense of contraction and expansion, and what are my boundaries around that. Exploratory movement also helps to create this sense of a new internal self-image. I explore what's possible, that what is the range of motion at the beginning compared to at the end. Following with ease what my body does experience, and anchoring that in my nervous system. And I love this quote from the Dalai Lama of loving ourselves is experiencing ourselves without judgment. And can I offer myself that in this exploration? So I'm curious, we're ready for some questions. I'm curious about what you discovered about yourself and how you can share this with others. Before we take the questions, to just go over, here's some other types of exploratory movement practices that might be available. Lots of things are being offered on Zoom, again, including our cortical field reeducation program. Obviously, you got to experience it via Zoom right now, right? Not that much different, except it's more of an hour-and-a-half lesson than a 10-minute lesson. So check out those opportunities to take advantage of these movement practices. And again, noticing I'm going for a nervous system that's balanced and my activation is manageable, right? Where I have choice, lots of choices. If I only think I have two choices, I know I'm no longer in a state of relaxation, but I'm in a state of fight or flight. So move better to feel better, to live better. All right. Let's take a look at our questions.
So Sean,
Yep.
There haven't been any new questions entered in yet. Again, people can just do that through the Q&A thing. They can see that at the bottom of their screen.
Great.
Just go ahead and type in a question. But to start things off, there were a couple of questions regarding, how to access the recordings. Questions about, oh, is this being recorded? I said yes, but how can people get those recordings? How can people how are the links being sent out for these talks, and how are people accessing that?
Yes, if you came to week 1, you should have received a email that was thanking you for attending, and it had a link to the Zoom recording. So the same should happen for week 2 and next week. you'll get an email from the New Beginning Center, and it'll have the link to the recording. It has a password attached to it, and those will be available. And if again, if you run into trouble, you can reach out to me via email, and we can help you out with that. Anybody want to share some feedback about what they experienced from the exploration? Can I go back 3 slides? Exercise. Okay. So I want to first talk about the exercise. Felt very uncomfortable for me, especially when you asked to move my eyes in a different way from moving the neck. What does that mean? Again, without my eyes on you, I can only speak in generalities, but typically there becomes this, lockdown in the cervical spine area. And so it's like we don't have the flexibility to move. We kind of lock our head and neck and eyes in as one. And so this differentiation of, oh, I'm reminding my brain that my eyes can move in one direction and my head can move in another. And my neck, we do a whole lesson on neck, because what really is my neck? My neck is just one part of my spinal column. And so if I'm turning, I'm really perhaps turning my entire spine as I rotate my body. And sometimes we slow down to really articulate all of the different vertebrae that are involved in turning my body, to really separate out the cervical spine. All right, go back 3 slides. Let's see. To the list of classes. Oh, okay, sure. That's helpful. Oops, I went forward 3 slides. So again, these are just some of the different types of exploratory movement practices. There's, to me, again, anything could be an exploratory movement practice. It comes with your attitude and your approach. Downhill skiing, wakeboarding, mountain climbing, all could be exploratory movement practices if I come from that place of really tuning into what's my embodied experience of this, as opposed to a quest for the goal. How do I get to something or someplace? Okay. What you said about letting go and grieving is so true. I cried for the last 2 days and experienced some negative thoughts, but I woke today feeling so much brighter and positive. Thank you. Yes, I think that sometimes we are afraid, and that's the part where I think that we let our minds scare us and divert us from following what the natural experience of the body would be, which is to have these movements of arousal and release, and to have sensations that are experienced as emotions, and to let them be expressed through shaking, trembling, sweating, so forth. With these exercises, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Chris.
Oh, sorry, Sean. Just there are a couple of bits of feedback and some questions also popping up in chat, so I just wanted to get those out there. There's one from Sarah. She says, even with small movement, I was surprised to find some fear, as if I were going to hurt my neck. Normally, I power through things in yoga or dance without noticing any such feelings or resistance.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Yes, what a gift you gave to yourself of, you have a choice, I mean, we're equipped to power through stuff when we need to, but the question is, when do we need to? And can I not, more often than choosing to power through, can I honor and learn from my experience so that I preserve my longevity? Life is a marathon, not a sprint.
And one other thing, Larissa had a comment and a question. She said she noticed, Larissa noticed, I noticed it's harder for me to turn my head to the right, and my right eye hurt a little bit, I guess during that practice. And then she also, there was also a question, can I integrate Qigong in my mental health practice if I become Qigong certified?
I'm not a Qigong specialist, but it would seem to me that that would be a wonderful pairing. Again, just as we've done that at our center, offering trauma-sensitive yoga, offering Nia movement to heal. We really do those practices at our center from this perspective of how do we help people get reconnected with themselves and focus on the pleasure and the sensations of the experience. So I think it's a wonderful pairing for mental health. With these exercises, does lightheadedness happen frequently, and is that a sign of stress or anxiety? Another great question. Lightheadedness is a sense of arousal. It can be sort of just before moving into what might be dissociation. So I would invite you to pause, do less, breathe, imagine the movement. And again, wonderful information that you've given yourself about, oh, when I bump into this, literally, physically, and emotionally, there's a barrier there. Again, a barrier could be a physical barrier, emotional barrier, or a mental barrier. They're all connected. So how do we honor whichever one is available to us to notice and pause there, hang out there for a bit, as if you were with a beloved child or friend? Can I be curious about what's happening when I notice that change of state from something that's comfortable to less comfortable, or something could be from uncomfortable to ease? All of that is wonderful for nervous system healing. All right. I really felt angry at first at being asked to do this. Thank you. As the exercise continued, I began to feel more curious about what's happening. Yes, particularly, like I say, with the differentiation exercise, that can come up for folks, and to really stay with that, be attentive to that, because awareness is not, again, we're not going for relaxed. It's lovely when it happens, but we're not aiming for it. We're aiming for increasing our self-knowledge, our self-friendedness. Can I learn how to be a better friend to myself? Okay. I'm reflecting on how much I need to take the time to engage my body, and how I carry tension, and how good it is to feel how it felt to yawn. Yes, please. Again, take yawning out into your community. I have chronic pain, so it's difficult for me to sit with my pain. What kind of practices would be good for someone like me? We want to come from a place of kindness, right? And so just touching into the places where there is pain, and then stepping away. Chronic pain is really, again, it robs the brain from lots of use in more creative ways. So we want to go slow. There's a wonderful book Peter Levine wrote with Maggie, I'm losing her last name, but it's from a somatic experiencing perspective of working with chronic pain. There's some wonderful exercises in there. It's, again, about less is more. And if you can use your imagination towards pleasure, that is the beginning of starting to rewire the brain. And as we rewire the brain, we're going to change our experience. Lena Rappaport has raised her hand. Chris, can you help me with what she's wanting to add in?
I don't see the hand raise. So.
Two participants. Do you see a question from Lena?
No.
Okay.
Lena, if you can maybe enter your question into either into the chat or the Q&A.
Or I can let it talk. Let's try that.
Down at the bottom bar.
Lena, I've just unmuted you. Let's give this a try. No.
Lena's question is down at the bottom. What happens in a brain when we imagine?
Oh, what happens in a brain when we imagine? It lights up. So, that's the beauty of this work is just, again, as the brain is making stories about our experience, when we imagine we're engaging that creative part of the brain. To me, that's part of why our dream state is so helpful, and why we think of folks who aren't dreaming, they tend to be also experiencing other types of difficulties. So that imagination process, to me, is a sign of mental health and creativity and flexibility. So I want to engage that as much as possible. If you look at folks who've been in horrible conditions, right, in torture, some situations, imprisoned and so forth, all they really had was their imagination, and that's what kept them sane. So could I name the book again? It's something with chronic pain, I believe, in the title. And again, it's by Peter Levine, Levine, and Maggie. If you email me, if you can't find it, I can track it down for you. Where can we find more somatic exercises, please? You mentioned a book. Do you mind repeating it? That was the one. There's also Peter Levine's, one of his basic books called Healing Trauma. It also has a series of exercises. The work that we did today comes connected to Feldenkrais work and cortical field reeducation. If you go to awarenessthroughmovement.org, which is ATM, Awareness Through Movement, ATM.org, their wonderful teachers have recorded lessons, like longer ones like I did today, and you can listen to those and follow along. So there's kind of a wealth. You can go to our website. There's some things available there. I hope that helps. And let me just get to kind of the last, close this up for a second. Okay, so we're running 3 free drop-in online support groups, one for eating disorder recovery support, another for really resources and reconnecting support during this time of upheaval and transition. That's led by Angela Riculi, our clinical director. And then we have another group on Fridays called Queer Space for LGBTQIA community support. Our website has more details, and all of the Zoom links for these 3 are available there. And then next week, Dale Ryder, our Reiki master and LCSW, will be presenting on our 3rd module, which is Love Heals, How Trauma Impacts Our Relationships and Tools for Healing. I hope you'll join us there. And again, I'll make sure that when the thank you goes out for this week, I think I saw a couple of you didn't get the recording from last week, so we'll just include that link from the first 2 in the thank you email this week. And again, whatever troubles you might have, feel free to give me an email, and we'll try to sort out getting you the resources that you might need.
Sean, just real quick. So Courtney had a question in the Q&A section that didn't get addressed. Let me see. It was about crying.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find it. Oh, yes. Can you please talk some about crying as a response to the exercise or movement we did? There was no pain or discomfort, by the way.
Good. Yes. Wonderful gift for yourself, Courtney, letting yourself cry. When I was going through a difficult time, I started going to Nia, and about the 3rd song into the dance routine, I was in tears, and I just let myself cry. It doesn't matter if you figure out why you're crying. You're giving your body a release. It's not about forcing it either. So we're not going after a cathartic experience, but more of just a gentle release. So if you feel the welling up and maybe only a couple tears happen, great. If more come, we really just want to provide support for the experience that you're having so that you don't overwhelm yourself. But it's just a natural, wonderful way that our body releases energy.
Were there any other questions that, because I wasn't able to notice when all the questions, to make sure that you were answering all the questions on here.
Sure.
So do you want to do one last sort of run through to make sure there isn't anything else that's still missing?
Oh, Freedom from Pain. Oh, thank you. The book is called Freedom from Pain, the Peter Levine Maggie book that has exercises. Are you providing any other webinars on this topic? Probably. So stay tuned. Sign up for our newsletter on our website. And Jade raised her hand. Let's see, allow to talk. Am I doing that right? I've unmuted you, Jade. Doesn't seem to be able to work.
Sean, there's Jade left a question in the Q&A.
Okay.
The one that I can find is that I have really struggled through all of this, the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
I found myself exhausted constantly in fight, flight, freeze mode, also fighting Graves' disease, always looking for ways to center myself.
Yes. Yes. So I think if I'm not mistaken, Graves' disease is an autoimmune disorder. And so, right, always looking for ways to support your immune system, to support your parasympathetic response. I often find in working with folks with chronic pain or chronic illness, when they're having a good day, when you're not feeling exhausted completely, that I want to get more done. Like, oh, I'm having a good day, so I'm going to go and do a lot. And it can kind of get into overdoing. And that's, a difficult thing because it's this finding a way to increase capacity and still respect your limitations. So I know we talk about it as like the spoons. How many spoons do I have to start my day? And getting dressed takes a spoon. And I got to get through the day with not spending all my spoons before the day is over. There's a lovely little parable about that. So again, I think that Freedom from Pain book could be another great resource. And I know Lori Hops is a wonderful practitioner in the community. She's an energy psychologist. She's offered lots of exercises as well as has done some workshops in the community. She's based in Westlake, HOPS. She's a licensed psychologist. First name Lori, Lori. And so she's a great resource for some of the somatic work as well. So I'm going to honor folks' time and draw this to a close. I'm going to keep my screen open so I can scroll through the chat just before I close the webinar down. But thank you all for attending. I hope we see you all next week with Dale Ryder, and have a wonderful afternoon. Bye now.